What is going on, everyone? I hope you are all having a fantastic day. So, sorry for the late upload today, but I decided last minute to pivot topics because I haven't given you a stimulus update in a little while, and with everything else going on right now, it seems like this topic has taken a backseat in Washington. So I quickly want to discuss what is happening with the president's executive orders that were signed a few weeks ago. Is Congress even looking at passing another stimulus bill? And how does all of this affect you? Because that is the most important part. So if you want a quick breakdown on everything that's going on in the way of stimulus, then be sure to stick around to the end of the video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you do get value out of these videos, and let's jump right into it. Okay, so we know that the many benefits from the CARES Act, which was that bill that was passed at the end of March, those benefits ended at the end of July, and this included many benefits, including the $600 per week unemployment payments that continue to be at the center of this debate. Congress has spent the last several weeks debating these unemployment extensions, figuring out how to refund the PPP program, and of course, how to get another stimulus check in your hands. But it seems like the Senate and the House of Representatives are miles apart, or in this case, trillions of dollars apart, and that's where the president's executive orders come in. The president signed 4 executive orders regarding stimulus, and until Congress is able to come up with their own solution that everyone can agree upon, this is likely what will be happening. Now, before we talk about these 4 executive orders, I want to clarify that an executive order does not mean that this automatically becomes a law and it passes immediately. Only Congress can approve how much money is spent on any particular bill. So this still has to be reviewed, but think of an executive order like a fast pass at Disney World. Yeah, you get to bypass most of the line, but you still have to wait for a little while to get on the ride, and an executive order is basically the same thing. So the first executive order is a payroll tax holiday, which would defer your payroll taxes from September 1st of this year to the end of 2020. Now, when talking about payroll taxes, we're specifically looking at the 6.2% of your check that currently goes to Social Security, and the 1.45% that goes to Medicare. So under this executive order, any individual making less than $4,000 bi-weekly before taxes would have these taxes deferred for the remainder of the year. This basically means that if you make less than $104,000 a year, then you would qualify. Now, you may have noticed that I used the words deferred and a payroll tax holiday, and that's because this is not a payroll tax cut. You would still have to pay back these payroll taxes at the end of the year. And that's why, in my opinion, this isn't a great option, and in a lot of ways is kind of misleading. First of all, the small payroll tax cut for just a few months before the end of the year would really be no benefit or little benefit to most employees. Plus, having to pay this amount back at the end of the year really means that at the end of the day, when all is said and done, this really is no benefit to you at all. The president does have the power to defer these taxes for up to 1 year, but only Congress can decide whether these have to be paid back or not. And with everything else going on in Washington and them being sidetracked on a lot of other things, I'd probably say it's safe to assume that you will have to pay this back at some point. Plus, keep in mind that the programs like Social Security that this money would be coming from are already really low on funds, so I find it very unlikely that Congress would say,
yeah, let's just not ever pay that money back.
So after that, we also have an eviction protection extension that extends on the exact same eviction protections that were part of the CARES Act, which kept landlords from evicting their tenants if they were not able to pay their rent. Now, this is important because with these eviction protections expiring, there are growing concerns that many renters will be thrown out on the street because they're not able to pay their rent. So this eviction protection extension is a good idea. However, there's always some fine print, and this is not exactly what you might think. This executive order does not actually extend the CARES Act eviction protections, but instead gives the Secretary to Public Health and Human Services, as well as the CDC director, the ability to make that decision in the future. So unfortunately, if you read the fine print, this is not actually an eviction protection extension. It simply passes this decision on to other individuals who are basically saying, yeah, we'll look into it. So at the end of the day, if you are afraid of being evicted, then I would say go to your landlord and explain your situation to them, because they might be willing to help you, and I wouldn't wait for the government to come in and protect you themselves, because your landlord would rather get some money from you than kick you out and not be able to fill that unit with another tenant, meaning in that case, they would get no rent at all. That brings us to the third executive order, which is by far the most controversial and highly debated, and that is the extension of the unemployment benefits from the CARES Act. As you might know, the CARES Act gave unemployed individuals $600 per week from the federal government on top of the state benefits that they already receive. And this has caused a lot of tension because in many cases, unemployed individuals were making more money just sitting at home than those individuals who were working through the pandemic and in a lot of cases risking their lives to help save some people. Now, regardless of how you feel about this executive order would reduce these federal unemployment benefits from $600 per week down to $400 per week. However, However, it does say that states would have to cover 25% of this, meaning the federal government would pay you $300 and your state would pay you the additional $100. But many states have already come forward and said that they simply do not have the money to pay this. So in a lot of ways, this is not going to be possible depending on where you live. Not to mention that the total federal pool of money only has about 5 weeks worth of funds left. So as soon as these payments start, they'll pretty much be gone again. So while this would be retroactive back to August 1st, these payments would be ending just as soon as they get started again. So I would not hold your breath if you are relying on these unemployment checks, and I would definitely focus your energy towards finding ways to safely get back to work if that's possible. And lastly, we simply have a student loan interest deferment extension, which again just extends upon the CARES Act, extending the paused interest payments on all federal student loans. That one is pretty straightforward and to the point, and by far the most simple, so green check on that one. So those are the 4 executive orders that were signed, but what are the chances of these things actually happening, and what needs to occur in order for you to start seeing these benefits? Well, as far as the payroll tax holiday, like I said, this will probably have to be paid back, and I'm assuming that most employers will not want to deal with this huge headache of collecting payroll taxes at the end of the year. Not to mention, what do you do if an employee leaves the company in the next few months? I mean, are you supposed to track them down and get that payroll tax money paid back to you? Remember that while you do pay your own federal income taxes, your employer also covers a portion of that. So that, coupled with the fact that this will have to be paid back at the end of the year, means that it really just isn't worth the headache for most employers. Now, as far as the eviction protection extension and the unemployment benefits, again, I would personally not hold your breath and wait on receiving these benefits because, one, the eviction protection is not even a thing and just gives the power to someone else to make that decision down the road. And there are a lot of holes in the unemployment extension, so I wouldn't recommend just sitting around waiting for that money to show up in your mailbox. So really, if you ask me, the paused federal student loan interest is really the only one that is realistically going to supply benefit to anyone, but don't worry, you're not completely out of luck. Both the House of Representatives and the Senate are in agreement that another round of stimulus checks needs to happen. And while they are miles apart on how much should be spent, and they're very sidetracked by everything going on with the United States Postal Service right now, I do have an optimistic outlook that another round of stimulus will be happening eventually. That said, I would not hold your breath and sit around waiting for this money to arrive. So take a good look at your situation and figure out what you can do to better yourself, because if we've learned anything from this entire process, it's that waiting around for the government to help you out is definitely not a good strategy. So I know that all of this is a really hot topic, so let me know what you think of these 4 executive orders down in the comment section below, and what you would personally propose as a realistic stimulus option that both sides could probably agree to. If you did get value out of this quick video, then please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel, since we'll be back to our regularly scheduled content on Wednesday. As always, thank you so much for your time. I seriously do appreciate it so much. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.